Continuous praise to the Most High God, King of heaven and earth. Yehovah is his name. Amen. Even the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzhak, and the God of Yisrael. I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Lakem. So how's everybody feeling? Hot. I ain't got no problem with turning the heat down. That's more money. Whoever needs to make that happen, please do so at this time.
That's what he said. That's more money.
But that was a good praise session. That was a beautiful praise session. It was so good, they still going on in that next room. Y'all see how that go, right? That's okay, listen. I ain't never mad at people being exuberant for the Most High God. That's what we're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, we got so far away from God, we thought that there was only certain times where we should even give praise to God.
Amen.
And so in getting back to serving God, you know, today we're going to open up to the book of Ruth. And I'm going to handle the first two chapters. And you know, as I was studying this portion, I stopped and I thought, like, a lot of times I stop and I think, I'm like, why this part of history? Why do we need this information and why is it important for us today?
Right. Amen.
And a lot of times I stop and I say, when we have this book, when you read it, ask yourself the question, what does this have to do with me? Because Ruth, she was an integral part of our history.
Right.
But what was more important was the family that she came from and how she thought about her family. And so today, in the last part of the day that we have left, I'm going to talk to us about family and communication. And I want to talk to us about the importance of communication and the importance of family and the importance of being there for one another. Because a lot of times we stop and think people should understand things, or sometimes people don't understand things. And a lot of times we should stop and give each other warnings about the way things are going in order that that doesn't happen, or use examples of how people dealt with one another to understand how we should be dealing with one another. And sometimes we don't get that because we're going to get into a couple of people. And you know, when we talk about Ruth, a lot of times I stop and I say, don't forget Naomi. Don't forget Naomi. Her mother-in-law, her mother was a very important part of all of this. And then we get into honor thy father and our mother, but a lot of times we stop and we say, be like, I honor my father and my mother, but everybody else, it's kind of optional. And forget about the in-laws, because they were brought along. That's what they teach out there. But sometimes when people deal with you in kindness, what should you repay them with? Kindness. That's how it goes. That's who we are as a people. Regardless of where they came from, what they're about, when people do you good, you do them good. Because that's how God would want it. And I stop and I want us to remember about this woman, Naomi. That's how it's pronounced in the Hebrew. Coming from the root word Naim, meaning pleasantness. She embodied what her name meant. Throughout this whole story, we're going to stop and we're going to see that. And so I stop and I ask ourselves, how often do we communicate on a positive level, on a pleasant level with one another? How often do we stop and we teach each other through correction with pleasantness? A lot of times we expect when somebody's to be angry for them to like lose their mind. And if you ain't losing your mind, then you must not be that angry. But that's not the case. That's not how God wanted us to be, because we see that there's certain things, generational curses that's happening in our own lifetime that we're having a problem breaking due to a lack of communication, due to a fact of us stopping and telling one another how we should rightfully deal in our relationships, how people should rightfully deal in friendships, how people should rightfully deal with one another as congregants. We don't think that there's etiquette associated with that. It's either I like you or I don't. Maybe I like you or maybe I don't. And so I stop and I sit down and I look, and I'm not fooled to what's happening in social media. So everybody, there's this big to-do about R. Kelly, and we ain't gonna be on this too long. But I want us to stop and understand this. The reason why we're arguing this so long is because people realized that there was somebody that was doing wrong for a long time. Nobody said anything about it, and now everybody's pointing fingers.
Exactly.
And that's what we do right here in these days and times. We sit down, somebody could see the way things are headed, and then they're like, oh, that's just that person. And then later on, somebody agrees, and we go, oh, well, listen, those two. And then things get worse, and then now everybody's pointing fingers. And so I stop, and I want us to understand where Ruth was headed. Ruth cared about her daughter-in-law because that's who her son chose. Oh, I said Ruth. Black. Excuse me, correction, thank you. Naomi chose her daughter-in-law because that's who her son chose. And she understood that that was her family. And as we start to understand how this family unfolds, she didn't only just think about her son and, well, that was my son's wife and time to move on. She thought about who this woman would be later on in her own well-being. And that's how we should be, not only with our daughters, with one another, with our elders, because why? That's how God would want. And so as I stop and I talk to us about communication, I stop and I say, don't let your only conversation be with your children about relationships. Let your conversation with your children be about God. And sometimes as children, you got to stop. And if something's going on in your mind, it's important to go and talk to your parents about how you're feeling. Because you may not know how to deal with how you're feeling. It may be something that you haven't experienced before. And so, why is that important? That's important because sometimes all of us live busy lives, but when it comes to your children, make time to hear what they have to say. Amen. Don't always let everything be, I've been working all day. You want to come and talk to me, but you can't talk to me now, and now becomes a week or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Sometimes you might have to stop and say to yourself, no matter if I'm tired, I need to stop and talk to my daughter right now. I need to stop and talk to my sons right now. And there I state, I need to stop and talk to my wife right now. She might be telling something about your children that's something that you may not like. And then what do? They come and they stop and they tell you, like, well, I tried to talk to you about it. When? No, you didn't. Like, yeah, I did. You kept telling me I gotta go over here and I gotta go over there and I gotta do this. And so I stop and I say, if this woman would have never listened to her in-law, what would have happened? And we're gonna remember about Ruth. I believe she was the great-grandmother of our King David. And we'll get into that probably next week. But let's start the portion and let's talk about who this woman was.
We're in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And it came to pass in the days when judges judged that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Beit Lechem in Yehuda went to sojourn in the fields of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons.
So if y'all heard me talk about Abraham before, I stopped and I said, like, listen, things happen in life. God leads people in certain ways. And even though the children of Israel weren't in exile, it was in the time when the judges judged. And if y'all remember when we went through the book of Judges, any and everything was going on.
Yes, sir.
So when that happens, he stopped and he said, it's actually better for me to dwell with the Moabites than to deal with the Israelites.
That's bad.
You know something got to be wrong.
That's bad.
We stop and sit down and I'm sure there's somebody somewhere within the sound of my voice saying right now, you'd be like, that's why I stay in my house and don't go to a congregation. invariably. And I stop and I say, listen, you make your choices of how you make your choices, but whatever you do, serve God. Because here, he picked up his family and he left. When I talked about Abraham, I said, the way Sarah felt, wherever her husband went, that's where she was going. And so here, you have Naomi, who hasn't been introduced at this point, where she went along with, they didn't even pronounce him yet, but let the story go. Go ahead.
2. And the name of the man was Elimelech. And the name of his wife Naomi. And the name of his 2 sons, Machlon and Chilon, Ephrathites of Beit Lechem and Yehuda. And they came into the field of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years.
So they was there for 10 years. Short amount of time to stop. And then she went over there. She followed her husband, and then her husband died. And so, she's left, and she has her 2 sons. And quite naturally, I stop and I say, listen, let's not be fooled. If you have men and women together, they are going to get together. And you can't always sit down and be like, I'm in Germany, how come I didn't take an Israelite wife? Listen, you're off in Germany. You're in China. Quite naturally, people sit down, you be like, you expect them to go through a whole country and look for the Israelite and then see if they like that person? That's not how that works. So here he was, and they went, and she took wives for her sons, right? And that's what they did. Let's go on.
5. And Machlon and Chilon died, both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 children and of her husband.
Now, I want us to understand this. This is trauma on top of trauma. Hey. You sit down, you like, all the men of my life are now dead. And here I am in a strange country with 2 Moabite daughters, right? It reads.
6. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the field of Moab, for she had heard in the field of Moab how Yahweh had remembered his people and given them bread. And she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-laws with her. And they went on the way to return unto the land of Yehuda. And Naomi saw unto her daughters, and Naomi said unto her daughters, her 2 daughters-in-laws, go, return each of you to your mother's house, and Yahweh deal kindly with you as he has dealt with the dead and with me.
Now I want us to understand this. She knows she couldn't possibly stay there. She understood that she had an inheritance that she could go back to in her own land. Not her land, but where her family was. Always understand where your family's at. And always understand what people can do for you. She understood that she needed to leave. Her 2 daughters-in-laws started to follow her over there. Why? Because they understood that the life they chose was now going to be an Israelite life. But here and she went, she gave them an out. It goes on to read.
Now, Yahweh grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, nay, but we will return with thee unto thy people.
Yeah, she's sitting there, she gave them out. Listen, you don't have to follow me. And you hear what she said, go find a husband. You sitting here with me is not going to work. Go and find a husband and do what you have to do. Live the lives you lived, because I've already been living the life that I wanted to live. This is what's important about understanding, looking out and tending to the flock, caring for people. At a certain point, you got to stop and you see if somebody's not with somebody for a very long time, it's worth asking the question, listen, how come you ain't with nobody yet? A lot of times we stop and we joke about it and we say the different things, but sometimes not everybody knows how to find somebody that fits them. A lot of times we just expect our children to know. We'd be like, listen, they'll figure it out. Every child doesn't figure it out.
Man.
Let me say this. Every adult doesn't figure it out. There's people who try again, and still don't figure it out. And so I stop and I say that for her, She understood what they needed to do for their lifetime because it's important for people to have a mate. And I'm saying it for the record. It is not normal to be single all of your life just because. Not and there's nothing wrong with you. Why is it that you don't like anybody and nobody is good enough for you? There has to be something going on there. But when we get back into this, she stops and they say to them, nay, but we will return unto thee, unto thy people. And it's not that there weren't husbands there, but if you're going to be a Moabite, go ahead and be a Moabite. I understand this. My sons are gone. But they wanted to stay with Naomi. It reads.
11. And Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Have I yet any sons in my womb that may be your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. And if I should say I have hope, should I even have a husband tonight and also bear sons? Would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye shut yourselves off for them and have no husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes, for the hand of Yahweh is gone forth against me.
Now, hold on. Hold on. Because there was a lot said in that one statement. 12. For I am too old to have a husband. I'm just telling y'all something here. You got Israelite men talking about wait on the Lord. You're like, listen, sister, I'm just trying to tell you something. Before your window begins to close, you're going to have to make a choice sooner or later if your desire is to have a husband. There is a point where people stop and say, like, listen, this is all you can do. And you will have men that will stop and say, hey, listen, I want to have children. And don't think that they won't look at you and be thinking, I don't know if she can have children. Because that's a reality of life. What's also important here is that she said, what did it say? Would you tarry for me? Would you tarry for them till they were grown? Would you shut yourselves off of them and have no husbands? What does shut yourself off mean? You sit down, you be like, are you really gonna stop yourself from the desire of looking at people for what might happen, what may happen, what possibly could happen, or are you gonna deal in the here and now? I sit down and I stop and I say, everything that she was advising them of was of no benefit to her, but of every benefit to them. Because they stop and I stop and I say, I'm like, women know what's going on in a woman's mind. And so sometimes this information is there, not that I could relate as a man, but that you as a woman could stop and look and relate and stop and say, listen, this is what women think. And even though I may not want to share this with somebody else, this is how I feel. Israelite sisters sometimes stop and take a look and they're like, listen, I don't like any of the Israelite men around. And that's not a bad thought. Because sometimes the Israelite men around are no good within your circle. I'm not saying every Israelite man is bad. I'm saying sometimes your circle is so limited that you stop and you're like, either I'm going to pick and settle for less for one of these, or I'm going to go out in the world. What do I do here? And what I lastly want to touch on is when they said, where did she say, till they were grown? Oh, would you tarry for them till they were grown? I'm going to be brief on this part, and I'm going to say this for what it is. You got some low life, no good, dirty Israelite men that are out here saying you actually don't know what age is legal to be with a woman. And I stop and I say, first of all, girls are girls and women are women. So if you think that you want to go get a girl to be a wife, there's something wrong with that. And the fact that you could actually stop and say to yourself that it does not state what the actual age is that you could begin to take a woman tells you that there's something wrong with your understanding. So I'm going to say this. R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, and all the rest that we haven't heard of that people want to put in the thing. Well, Michael Jackson, like little boys, little girls, it's all weird. It's all weird. Listen, that ain't no ledge. When you got a secret bedroom that has a staircase that's in the back of your bedroom, that has a spiral staircase that leads down, that has a huge bed with teddy bears and stuffed animals on it, and you stop as a grown man and say, I have no problem sleeping in the bed with children, there's something wrong with that. And you got people that's putting that in other people's head like it's okay, and you got impressionable kids that think that's okay.
Right.
Something wrong with that.
Amen.
Here Ruth stopped and said, until they were grown, meaning that clearly there was a point that they would have to wait until these kids had an understanding of what it is to take on a wife before they could be with them.
Amen. Good point.
The same thing that Judah stopped and did with Tamar when he stopped and he told them, wait till my youngest son be grown and then I'll give him to you. And she stopped and she waited and she seen that he was grown, meaning that there was a point that they waited. So I'm stopping and I'm telling y'all, for every one of those Israelite men out there that's trying to tell y'all otherwise, here's your scriptural evidence.
Yes.
Amen.
Don't let them put that in your head. Tell them you wait. And dare I state, if somebody's trying to put that in your head, stay far away from them. But let's get back on Ruth. She understood what her daughters needed, and therefore she gave them this information. Let's go. I keep saying Ruth, right? Naomi. Torah.
14.
I'm with
And
it.
they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth cleaved unto her. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is going back unto her people and unto her God. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, and to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. And thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Where thou diest, I will die, and there I will be buried. Yehovah do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me.
Loyalty. Loyalty can't be replaced. You can't teach this. I'm telling you that in order to say something like this, you got to have it in your heart. I'm telling you, when you have people like this around you, that's what you want to cleave unto. See, too far often do we have friends and fake friends, people that we say are our friends, that do us wrong, and we stop and we say, oh, that's only that person. But where's the loyalty at? Where's the friendship at? Where's the part where we stop and we say, listen, this is us until the end, no matter what's going on? And I don't have reservation about saying that. I don't have reservation to say that about you because I know you are genuinely good people. I said, it's the thing going on in the world now. You like, when people separate themselves from foolishness, people stop and say, be like, oh, this person is acting funny. Stop and say, be like, have you ever asked the question, does that person, maybe that person don't like you no more? We don't like to admit it, but sometimes it happens like that. Let's go on.
18. And when she saw that she was steadfast minded to go with her, she left off speaking unto her. So they two went until they came to Beit Lechem. And it came to pass when they were come to Beit Lechem that all the city was astir concerning them. And the woman said, is this Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty have dealt very bitterly with me.
Yeah, Mara, we remember that place in the wilderness where the waters were bitter.
That's right.
Now she's stopping, she's saying,
Call me that.
call me bitter.
Call me bitter.
Like, because I left, and in 10 years' time, I thought things were going to get better. I lost my husband, and I lost both sons. He goes on to read.
21. I went out full, and Yehovah have brought me home empty.
Empty.
Why ye call me Naomi, saying that Yehovah has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me?
I'm trying to tell you how people see things. People stop and they're like, oh, it's my fault. And God is judging me. And I'm here to stop and tell to you today that not everything that happens bad in your life is your fault. even though you may feel it in your heart, it's not always something you did. Sometimes God is punishing the people for what they did. And so, even though we stop and we choose our family, we stop and we choose the friends that we have in our life. And when I say we choose our family, we choose our husbands, we choose our wives, none of this stuff is forever. None of it. Not a near bit of it. And so sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. Sometimes you got to roll with the punches. I'm having a bad point in my life right now, but I know God will be with me. It reads
22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned out of the field of Moab, and they came to Beit Lechem in the beginning of barley harvest. Chapter 2, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of valor, and a family of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean among the ears of corn after him in whom sight I shall find favor. And she said unto him, go, my daughter. Mm-hmm. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light upon the portion of the field belonging unto Boaz and unto the family of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Beit Lechem and said unto the reapers, Yehovah be with you. And they answered, Yehovah bless thee. Then said Boaz unto the servants that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant that was over the reapers answered and said, it is a Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the field of Moab. And she said, let me glean, I pray you, and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and have continued even from the morning, even until now, save that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither pass from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens.
Now I want y'all to understand this. She was gleaning in the field. She didn't see Boaz at first. She had to ask somebody else. But then the guy who's in charge takes notice of her. Sometimes you just got to know, ladies. Listen, because you're going to see, there's going to be some hints that Naomi was a little bit naive. And you can be an adult and have some naivete. I keep doing that. Right?
Ruth.
No,
this was Ruth.
I know. I keep doing that. I'm switching it all up. Thank you. Now listen, thank you. We with Ruth now. No, but that's okay. I'll take the correction. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Ruth, you can have some naivete as an adult. And you sit down, you like, here goes the boss. And the boss is like, hey, listen, you don't worry about gleaning another field out here. You're straight right here. You sit down, you like, it's not like he didn't have other damsels, but he's showing this one in particular a certain amount of attention. Ask yourself the question, why? It reads,
9. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they should not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn.
The man was saying, gets no better, right? You sit down, you like, listen, don't worry about gleaning, and I left something there, and if you get thirsty while you're out there, because guess what? Gleaning is still work. You still got to get out there and go and pick up that stuff and carry it. And guess what? She's not carrying just for herself. She's carrying also for her mother, Naomi.
I ordered the guy not to touch you.
Right. And he's flexing his muscles. You sit down, you're like, listen, and those guys who work for me, I told them, don't even worry about you. You're straight. You're good. Do what you got to do. Come on.
10. Then she fell on her face and bowed down to the ground and said unto him, Why
have
I found favor in thy sight, that thou shouldest take cognizance of me, seeing that I am a foreigner?
You see where it's at? You see where she was at with this? You see where Boaz was at with this? Boaz just wanted to do her good. But she was like, I'm nothing but a foreigner. And so now we can stop and see when the Most High said there will even be a place for the stranger in the house of the Lord. Because it's not our job to make visitors feel uncomfortable.
Amen.
If you know people are in need and they're coming for a reason, it's not our job to make them feel unwelcome. If you open the door, Treat them like somebody who belongs in your house.
Amen.
And if you don't think they belong there, then keep them out. It reads.
11. And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath been fully told to me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thy husband.
I got the 411. Come on.
And how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and art coming to a people that thou knewest not heretofore.
She got to be a keeper. You forsook everything that was over there to come here? Let me find out about this woman. Because every man wants a loyal woman. It goes on to read. 12. Yehovah
recompense thy work, and be thy reward complete from Yehovah the God of Yisrael, under whose wings thou art come to take refuge. Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken to the heart of thy handmaid, though I be seen not as one of thy handmaidens. And Boaz said unto her at mealtime, Come hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and they reached her parched corn, and she did eat and was satisfied, and left thereof.
Don't tell me that you can't speak to a woman's heart. Of course you can speak to a woman's heart. The question is, do you want to do it? I stop and I said we've had, because being a pimp has been glorified for so long, when somebody's talking nice to you, you can't even realize when somebody's just being nice to you. Has to be ulterior motive.
Amen.
Has to be. You see what's going on here? Yup. I know what he's saying. And she look like she falling for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Everybody in the world ain't up to what you think they up to. And so for him, when you have, I want us to understand, we haven't had for so long, we don't understand what it's like to have. Just because somebody gives somebody something, that doesn't mean they expect something in return.
Amen.
Sometimes I just gave it because I have it and I want God to bless me because of it. Not because I'm waiting for you to come and be like, all right, now it's time to pay the piper. That's how we have. He spoke to her heart and she appreciated it. She appreciated it. Because all she knew was she was in a strange place and she just wanted to feel like she was a part of what was going on. It goes on to read.
15. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded the young men, saying, Listen, let her glean even among the sheaves,
right,
and put her not to shame. And also put some out for her of her purpose of the bundles, and leave it. And let her glean and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until evening. She beat out that which she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. And her mother-in-law saw that what she had gleaned, and and she brought forth and gave it to her that which she had left over, and she was satisfied. And her mother-in-law said unto her,
Here we go. Go ahead.
Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou?
Blessed
be he that did take knowledge of thee.
Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? He took knowledge of you. Blessed be that man. Don't think that what you did today is just something that just happened. Blessed be that man, because he noticed you. He took cognizance of you. He wanted you to be able to bring this back to me. Keep going.
And she told her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name who I wrought today is Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of Yehovah, who have not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead.
Kindness. Here's that Naim again. Kindness to the living and to the dead. Still considering the fact that her children and her husband died. It reads.
And Naomi said unto her, The man is near kin unto us, one of our near kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, Yea, he said unto me, Thou shalt keep fast by the young men until they have ended all my harvest.
Naomi's picking up on this. Come on.
And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, This is good. My daughter, that thou should go out with his maidens, and that thou be not met in another field.
Yeah, listen. You don't need to go anyplace else.
Stay right here.
I'm going to show you how to work this right now.
Yeah. Gave her diamond pearls and jerry curls.
I wasn't ready for him. Sit down. You like, listen, one man is willing to do all of this for you and he don't even know you like that? And be like, and you ain't say nothing to him, huh? You was just all like, yes, I'm glad you took care of me and all of that. Like, all right, I'm gonna show you what to do. Sometimes, as a mother, you kind of need to guide the daughters. Sometimes, as a father, you need to kind of guide the daughters. Because you sit down and you stop and you say, you like, listen, I don't know who this man is, but if he is willing to do this for you and he don't really know you, you need to take a closer look at this and see how this goes. Because everybody needs a situation where you find a spouse, man and woman, that there's somebody who's willing to take care of you and can take care of you.
Hallelujah.
Amen. That's important.
And can take care of you. You sit down, like sometimes we create the beds that we lie in. Sit down, this person ain't never been no good. And then now that you can't take care of yourself, they're still no good. And now you sitting down like, what am I supposed to do? But how often have we seen people that got together and you knew that the person never loved them? Mm-hmm. Everybody else seen it a mile away except for you because you thought it was love. And so I stop and I say, for her, when she said, it is good, my daughter, that thou goest out with his maidens, she stopped and she said, you need to hang out with them for a while.
Right.
Because eventually he's going to make his move. But I need to show you what to do. Let's finish it out.
23. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hoping and praying that you got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable to be spoken before his people, and we'll continue the rest of this history next week. But I ask that you all rise at this time as I call up my brother,